Gentlemen, this is the Black Baseball Mixtape, and this is Mixtape Talk episode 12. I am joined. I'm excited. I'm going to tell you already. I'm going to cut it off and say how excited I am because I am joined by Mike Sanders, Roc Nation Sports certified baseball agent. Mike, welcome to the Mixtape Talk.
Mark, man, pleasure, brother. I'm excited to be on today.
Man, I am excited to talk to you for a number of reasons. But even before we go, look, there is breaking. We are in hot stove season. It is all over the place, and I guess I'm assuming this is one of the busiest times for baseball agents to do the things that you need to do. Winter meetings are going on, signings are being made, like just like at this off season, this is not a break season for you. What happens right now in the world of a major league baseball sports agent at this kind of juncture in time as we look into December?
No, absolutely. So, to your point, man, we're getting ready. We're not even getting ready. We're full go into winter meetings. As soon as I get off the phone with you, home game for me. Lucky this year, it's in San Diego. I'm originally from Atlanta, but out here on the left coast now, so it's a home game for me. But this is a busy time for us. To your point, we're going into winter meetings. We'll be, meeting with teams about draft picks. We'll be meeting with teams about free agents. Be locked in pretty much to our suite in the hotel here from around 5 p.m. tonight for pretty much the next 3 days, man. So it's a busy time of year, but it's a fun time of year because you do contracts throughout the year, but this is the kind of time of year where you can start to get up on the scoreboard a little bit.
And there's a lot of movement, not just between players moving teams, but there is a lot of movement right now between players moving agencies, players moving agents. I saw just recently on your social media, you guys welcomed some new members. I believe it was Stroh and some of the other guys to the Roc Nation family. How does that work? Because that's another part of the game that I don't think a lot of people fully understand.
Yeah, man. No, I mean, yeah, Marcus Stroman is a client that joined Rock Nation this year. Obviously, we're so ecstatic and just blessed to be able to have Marcus on the roster. Just obviously, with him being an incredible baseball player and an influencer, and a guy who really takes his business seriously. We're lucky to have him. So, it's something to where it's just the reality of our business, Mark. Players, agents, you're looking to make sure that you have ultimately the best representation possible, and that you're making sure that you get one shot at this career. So you're trying to make it as predictable as possible. So there definitely is some movement within the industry, but ultimately everybody's just trying to make sure that they end up in the right position.
Well, let's talk about you, Mike, because uh, it's one of those jobs, a sports agent in general, and then talk about baseball on top of it, because I know there's layers in every different sport, but in baseball, it's difficult, man. There's a lot of barriers that you have to get through to be a certified agent. There's a lot of players you have to represent, possibly before they even get signed, drafted, and paid. Let's talk about how this career chose you in many ways and how you chose the career. What's your background? How did you get into loving the game and how did you get into becoming a sports agent?
Yeah, man. So I grew up east side of Atlanta. And if you know about east side of Atlanta back in the 90s, east side of Atlanta back in the 90s was just, baseball hotbed. We had, incredible, minority high schools like Redan baseball. I went up to Redan pretty much every day growing up as a child. My dad used to take me up there with Coach Greg Goodwin, and I just go up there and practice. Grew up watching Brandon Phillips play over at Redan, and he was kind of
Mm.
our staple in the community of like, hey man, if you stick with it, it can be done. So being able to grow up on the east side of Atlanta in the 90s was just baseball is what we did, man. The little leagues had overflowing with kids. We have 10, 12, 13 teams in every division. So it was just a good time. And as far as becoming an agent, I think for me a little bit about my background. I I went to University of Miami, so
That's right.
I'm a
That's right.
Hurricane man. I'm all about the U. So I went to the U, man. I played baseball down there. Incredible experience, and I ultimately ended up having two shoulder surgeries, which ended up ending my career. So
Mm.
in doing that, it was like, hey, I got this heartbeat for baseball. Like I love this sport. You know, I got a Lord willing a long life ahead of me, and I want to stay in the sport. So it was an analysis of okay, now what do you want to do in the sport? Who do you want to be? And for me, I've always been a player advocate, man. I've always been somebody who's, for the players, always somebody that wanted to, never have to make the hard decision to cut somebody or, make the hard decision to do something like that, that you can always be kind of on the positive end of supporting the players. So although I could have, potentially gone into the team side, I chose the player side, man. And it's been, kind of history from there. It's been a blessing.
No, that's a fascinating decision because you're talking about a hotbed of baseball in Atlanta. Obviously, we just know the National League Rookie of the Year, Michael Harris, is a product of Atlanta in those systems out there. Then you talk about going to a powerhouse program like the University of Miami, which has been known for baseball. I mean, I remember watching uh, University of Miami, the College World Series, just about every year.
Yeah.
As I was growing up in the '90s as well, and it goes through. So I mean, no slouch there. And then you make a decision when your playing days are coming to an end. You make a decision to be a player agent. That's phenomenal because still, even with that knowledge of the game, a lot of folks I'm sure are listening and wondering how do you make that transition? Do you start with an agency? Do you start interning? Do you start how does that happen? What was the grind season like? Because everything's a grind, but what was the grind season like on the agent side?
I'm smiling, man, because it was a grind. It was a grind. It was go buy my first suit. It was reach out to every agency. Hey man,
Oh man.
I remember I was in the airport, and I started with a group, man, that wasn't in baseball. They were a football group out of Washington D.C. And I was in the airport headed to that job interview, and I ran into one of my neighbors, man, who was just like, man, what are you wearing and what are you doing? You go you go to a job interview, and I was like, hey, we're gonna make it work. So they, I went up there, man. I met with different groups. I put a business plan together. I got to go back and look at that business plan to see if it was accurate or not. But I put it together, man, and I just went out and I sat down with people, and I hope I was able to exude my passion for this. I was able to show I had a made up mind, and I was ultimately going to grind and make it work, and that's what I was blessed and lucky enough to be able to do. So it was just get your foot in the door and go from there.
And then talk to me about Roc Nation Sports because everybody knows when you hear the words Roc Nation, it's synonymous with Jay-Z, it's synonymous with culture, it's synonymous with hip hop. How was Roc Nation the fit for you? How long have you been there, and how was it the fit for you? And
Yeah.
then we see, look, it seems like the perfect fit because we see players like Jazz and players like Stro, and it seems like a great home for people that are not just African American per se, but people that are in tune with culture. Roc Nation seems like the best home for them.
Yeah, no, Rock Nation, man. I've been at Rock Nation now for 2 years, and it has been the most comfortable experience,
Mm.
period, because of those reasons that you said. At the end of the day, I remember our CEO is OG Wan, who is Jay
Mm.
Z's business partner and best friend for now over 30 years. And OG, man, OG is, the hardest working brother I know. But the first day I went into the office, I was like, hey man, what should I wear? He was like, what do you wear? What you mean? He's like, what do you wear? And that's what we are, man. We're authentic.
Mm.
We're authentic to what we're doing. It's an agency that is built on, making sure to empower our clients, empower our athletes. The cool thing about it is, and Jay says it all the time. The big thing about Jay is, man, Jay is a sports mind, but a baseball mind.
Is it really?
Jay, OG, these guys are incredible sports minds, and guys who ultimately have been able to, build a, $1 billion business, right? And in doing that, it's really cool because they don't really need the money. And he tells us all the time, it's not about, going out and trying to recruit as many clients as you can or trying to bring on everybody. Ours is about trying to make sure to empower the right group of people so that they can continue to, give back and bless others with the position that they've been put in. So, for us, Rock is culture, is next generation, and ultimately it's a family. And for me, I think the family piece has been so incredible because, from the people that I work with to, the clients that I'm able to work with, everybody really has each other's back.
So now baseball is always a numbers game. So how do you identify players, talents, individuals that you want to work? What are the cues when you talk about that family? What are the cues that you identify that says, "Hey, man, I want to work with it. I want to work with this talent and see if I can help them out."
Yeah, no, for sure. If you're talking about an amateur player, I mean, we're looking to advise them and advise you and just, hey, how am I going to get to where I'm going? So for us, it's about, number one, making sure that player has the talent ultimately to be able to play this game for a long time, right? You're trying to get one of 30 jobs in the world. Not an easy.
Is that tough? I gotta ask about this because I had a great conversation with Lonnie Murray, who I love, is another amazing sports agent, and I was explained that there are some harsh realities to the jobs that sports agents have, and some of them is sitting around and saying, "Hey, look, this sport in the long run may not be for you." Is that like a part of your job? Is that like those come to Jesus meetings?
Yeah, I mean, look, you hope it doesn't have to be, but
Right.
that's the reality, man. Everything comes to an end
Oh,
at some point. And I think, you hope not to have. I haven't had too many of those conversations where it's like, hey, this just isn't going to work out because hopefully it's the right talent, and the right talent can ultimately determine their success and what they do in the sport. So, there's that reality with those players, but yeah, man, it's just from the agent's
it,
perspective, the players are looking for you to be honest with them about their business, and
and I'm sure it's
being,
more. I'm
Mhm.
sure it's more about, hey, look, you have the talent. We see it in you. We wouldn't have even been talking to you if you didn't have it. But these are the things that
Yeah.
you may need to be doing to put yourself in a position to be successful.
No, absolutely. I think for us, and to your question, we look for the right families, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it becomes a partnership. It becomes a partnership, and ultimately, helping your son become who he wants to become in this game. So, I can tell you this one thing I know from a parent's perspective is baseball is a game that is not easy. It's not easy. You gotta have the right support system behind you. All right. From a failure perspective and just from an access perspective, you gotta have the right support system. So we make sure those players have the right support system because if we're gonna go in this partnership, we want to know it's gonna be, a two-way street.
What is the hardest job now? So look, you've been in the game for a minute. You're in a great home. You've been there for 2 years. What's the hardest part now that people may not even think of when it comes to being a sports agent, a baseball agent?
Good question. The hardest part of being an agent, you know what? I just think it's just you're always on call.
Hmm.
The demand, the reality, whether it's Saturday and I'm out to dinner with the family. These guys are ultimately looking for you to, manage their lives and help them, navigate and maneuver this career. You just don't know when things are going to pop up. So people ask me all the time, hey, what's a normal day look like for you? And although, you definitely make sure to have structure around your day and, go about it the right way, at the end of the day, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know a player is going to get hurt in the game that day. And you're going to have to jump in and make sure that he has the right representation as far as the doctors working with him. You
Hmm.
don't know if a player's, you know, gonna ultimately be cut that day, and you
Hmm.
gotta make sure he understands his rights and understands what's the next step and how do we make sure to navigate and maneuver this situation that just happened. So I can say the hardest part probably about being an agent is just making sure that you're on go at all times.
How do you balance out? Because you mentioned it, you got a family of your own. You've got obviously work that's work, but you also have your work is a work that encompasses the lives
Right.
of the young people that you're trying to guide and the people you're trying to steer in the right direction. How do you balance it out between the stuff that you have to do on a personal level and professionally the stuff that you have to do all over the time?
Yeah, man. I'm not even gonna, you know,
Work
I,
life balance. What is that?
my bro. If you're gonna be an agent, make sure whoever you marry is an incredible spouse,
Right,
right?
a saint.
My wife, man, my wife Megan is a superstar. I
That's
mean,
awesome.
it
That's
is
awesome.
it is not easy on her being married to an agent with two young kids because my grind is real. My grind is real, and she picks up a lot of the slack a lot of the time. So I think there's that. I think the other thing for me is, and my coworkers will tell you, my clients will tell you, I'm a 4 a.m.er. I'm up every
Mm,
morning 4 a.m. So
mm,
at 4 a.m. I'm in the office by 6. I'm getting my creative time in for a couple hours and just having my quiet time before the day gets going. And then, man, I'm ready to move how I need to move, and whatever comes, I'm already on top of it. So I make sure I block out my time to be able to do whatever it is that I need to do. Be creative, create contract analysis, create whatever it is, the player development analysis, whatever. At the beginning of the day, so that when the day starts, you get ready to go. So that's kind of how I do my balance. Keep the main things the main things. For me, is family, is my faith, and is my job. Other than that, I don't really do too much.
how how do you get better in a job like? And I ask you this because in a job that you're constantly grinding, there's no time to really look up for air. You're constantly in motion, perpetual motion. How do
Yeah,
you take assessment to say, "Oh, I need to do this differently. I need to see what's happening here." Like, how, if somebody's in perpetual motion, how do y'all like not even retrain, but like, how do you know that you kind of stay at the top?
yeah. No, I mean, look, number one, players are looking for you to do good deals.
Mm.
It's the number one thing, like, hey man, don't mess up my money. They're looking for you to do good deals. So I think as an agent, it's always making sure that you understand how the marketplace is continuing to evolve. We had Trey Turner and Verlander deals come out today.
Today, good
I mean,
lord.
those are two guys that we'll do a full deep dive analysis on them. We'll look at everything, and we'll be able to determine how that affected the market, and ultimately what those guys we felt like those guys were worth, and so on and so forth, because that affects our clients in the marketplace, right? So it's just about continuing to just make sure that any aspect of your business that you're seeking out knowledge. That's what I believe, man. You just gotta. It's a mindset. It's a mindset of making sure that I'm always seeking out knowledge, that I'm never where I'm going to be. And that's a mindset you take in your career, but I also think that's something you should take through life as a whole.
No, absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better. Let's talk a little bit about this intersection between culture. Uh, I say hip hop culture. Some people that don't look like me will say urban culture, and
Yeah.
and that marriage between baseball as we know it now, and like it's just clear. No matter what locker room you're in, no matter what the audience of that team is, hip hop culture is going to be ringing through that locker room. Those are the songs they're going to be singing. That's the way they're going to be dressing. That's the swag they're going to bring out to the game. Um, and we constantly hear. So I think there is some good signs, especially in last year's draft. There's been some good signs in some players in college that are coming up, but we often hear that baseball's not for black people in 2022.
Right.
Nothing frustrates me more. Obviously, I've dedicated a whole platform to prove it, trying to prove the opposite. But the some of the swaggiest things I see are baseball kind of collaborations, mergers, hip hop and baseball. How do we convince? And it's not even like how do we convince not even the kids that are playing coming up because I think they see it, but how do we change that narrative to the general public? Because it seems like it's almost a self fulfilling prophecy that if they say it enough, that the culture is not for young black kids playing the game, people tend to believe it, even though they don't know that 6 out of the top 8 draft picks this year were African Americans. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right. Yeah. Not true. Just not true.
How do we
You
change
know.
that
And
narrative?
yeah, narrative's got to change, man. I talked to a lot of people, a lot of blacks in baseball, and that's just the reality. It's like we're all like, why do they say our kids don't play baseball? Because you got to understand, for us, we're with our pros, we're with our major leaguers. We're with those guys. So we're with the C.J. Abrams and the Jazz Chisholms and the Marcus Stromers of the world. But we're also,
Swag, complete
you know,
swag.
complete swag with those guys for sure. But we're also, with our younger guys, and honestly, those guys too are here to be able to change culture. When you talk about Tamar Johnson, when you talk about a Mason Wynn,
Mm-hmm.
these guys are very, very they're cool, man. That's
They
just all
they
they're
are. That's a
cool.
great way to say it. They just really are.
They're cool,
It
man, and they're effortless and they're cool. And I think the biggest thing is it's breaking down the barriers of what certain people in baseball may think. I mean, I think that's the reality. You know, when you talk about these guys and them being themselves on the field, don't think that they don't face any backlash because of it, because we're still going through that kind of transition phase of merging sport and culture.
Mhm.
Right. And the reality of hip hop and the reality of culture is that it permeates deep into our society in every single way. You talk about music being influential in our society, and especially hip hop culture. So it's only right that you merge the two if you want to make sure that this game is one that is attractive to all the kids in the world, right? All the kids in our country, black, white, Latino, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, you've got to make sure that there's diversity in the way that we go about it, right? And being able to have that culture brings diversity, and that's going to let the next Jazz Chisholm or the next Tamar Johnson, let him know that, hey man, I can do this and be myself. And for where I sit as an agent, it's the same thing. When I got into the agency business, people expected you to, go about things, looking a certain way, talking a certain way, flowing a certain way. And at the end of the day, you got to be authentically yourself. And to be able to be at the top, people are going to respect the fact that, you have the knowledge base. And then obviously over time, you're going to have the track record. But being true to yourself and being authentic to yourself, I think is everything in life, but definitely in this time that we're in, emerging sport and culture.
You mentioned top draft pick Tamar. You mentioned Mason Wynn, who is in the Cardinals organization. There, I mean, I'm like you in the sense that it didn't take me long. It took me really over this course of this last season to really start paying attention to the future of the sport.
Oh
And the
yeah.
future of the sport looks, I would say, really, really bright, not only in terms of the talent, but in terms of the way that these young men present themselves. That it seems like you said, authentic is the key word, but it's also one that I feel is true to be like it's just attractive. If I see if I see a Mason Wynn and I see him play, and then I see, like you said, and I see some of these young guys play. I look at it and say that's how I looked at a baseball playing Deion Sanders, right? The way that those guys play, and those were the guys that um, got me excited in the game. I
Oh,
say that.
we're 95 Atlanta Braves, man. That's what we,
Yeah.
we grew up on. That's the swaggiest team right there.
I
You
mean,
know.
I'm I'm in the say so. I'm in Virginia,
Okay.
and so I'm by default, like in the night. I mean, in that time frame, I mean, by default, I was an Orioles fan because we don't have a team in Virginia. Orioles were the
Mhm.
closest thing, but we
Right.
had all the the Richmond, the AAA team, the Richmond Braves was our
Right.
squad. So we had Richmond was kind of this
Yeah.
whole divided look because we saw everybody come up, but it was but yeah, let me ask you this in this way because I tend to get excited when I see people like yourself, Mike, and get excited about the young players in the game. I'm still having real difficulty, if you will, in the media space of how they cover baseball for Black culture and Black
Mhm.
community and Black fans. And I feel like you can correct me. Look, don't get yourself in trouble, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I see what they've done in basketball and I see what they've done in football, and I look at it and I say, like, where are the Nike commercials that used to, when we were in the '90s, had Bo Jackson and Dion? Where are those play that had Ken Griffey Jr. taking bat practice with the backers? Everybody remembers those commercials in my generation. And now
Mhm.
I'm looking at players like Mookie Betts, and I'm looking at players like, at the top, like, even a Cedric Mullen, or players that I think are at the top. Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge had 62 home runs. I can tell you if Aaron Judge has a Nike commercial out that everybody's. I can
Yeah.
tell you that they're not. You know what I mean?
Right.
Is there a role that not just sports company? I don't want to lay it on the face sports and apparel companies, but media. Is there like, can we, what can be done to make the game just more prevalent?
To your point, man. Look, content,
Yeah.
content, right? Content is the driver of everything right now. You know, we took a lot of pride at Rock at understanding the next generation athlete, and being able to amplify their voice, right? So in doing that, we built out a full out content team of, videographers and social media analysts and photographers and people that bring it all together and cut it up and make it feel good. And we brought in TV and film to be able to tell those stories as well. One of the big things, Jay has done throughout his career is be able to, ultimately attack injustices, right? And go about things, using his platform to make sure that you right wrongs. Simple as that.
Mhm.
And one of the things when you're looking at amplifying is using our platform. One thing at Rock we know is that, we have this incredible platform. You just go look at our social media following, right?
Mhm.
You're talking about, sports agency with millions of followers.
Mhm.
It's because of the Rock brand. And we understand how powerful that brand is. We understand what that brand is able to do as far as its reach, and we understand that giving our clients, that platform allows them to be able to, change the things that need to be changed. So, to your point, our we don't have a lot of, different commercials and different things like that out for, a lot of the influential players. But I can tell you right now, we got some fun news coming here where some of our guys are going to be, kind of on some platform things here leading in the next season. And I think that, using those guys to be able to change the game is going to be so beneficial for this next generation.
No, and you talk about the evolution of the business. I think that's the evolution of content as well. So I think you're right on it, because you're not going to see those traditional commercials. You know what I mean? That's on network TV, but you are going to see social media doing the things that you guys do on IG, doing the things that you do on YouTube, making some of those behind the scene type, almost reality show type vibes for people to get to know players and get to know what they're doing on a day to day. So I do think that's the next step.
No, yeah, for sure. And to your point of the draft this year,
Draft was
and
crazy this year.
oh, it was great. It was great, and just a reflection of what it had for blacks in baseball with those guys going to the very top of the draft. I can tell you this: understanding the classes that are coming, it's only going to get better. It's
That's what
only
I'm
getting
thinking.
better. It's only getting deeper. There's only more and more, black players playing across the country, and man, let me tell you, they can play. And what you're starting to see now is, a lot of these sons of NFL players,
Yeah.
sons of, top athletes who, ultimately are now gravitating towards baseball. So, there's some kids that are coming that are going to start to answer the question of, what happens if one of these NBA talents actually had, the skill set to play baseball with that type of body. And
Yeah.
you're seeing it with some of the up and coming players. These guys are a 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" monsters.
Yeah.
So Aaron Judge ain't the last one. It's more of
Now I
them.
was to say, how tall is the kid Cruz in Pittsburgh? He's playing shortstop. He's like 6'5".
Yeah, 6'7".
6'7". That's insane. That
Mhm.
makes. All right,
6'7".
let's switch gears just a little bit, have some fun. Mike,
Let's do
what
it.
was your, as a player, or you can answer this as a player, or you can answer this as a professional that is done playing. What is your proudest moment in the game?
Oh man, that's a good question. Ah, proudest moment in the game. You know what? It's still probably going to University of Miami.
Mhm.
You know, to your point, it was
Monster.
yeah, man. And for me, it was I signed at the U with Dexter Fowler, who
Mhm.
was a teammate of mine. I'm an East Cobb kid, so I'm an East Cobb Astros kid. And Dexter and I signed. He ended up turning pro, and I ended up going to college. Um, but uh, but to be the first venture from Georgia to ever be able to make it to the U with Florida being such a baseball hotbed, that to me was something that I'll be able to cherish for the rest of my life and be proud of.
Now, what position did you play? Were you a position player or a pitcher?
I was a two-way guy, man. I was a pitcher and a third baseman.
Okay. So I've asked everybody, just about everybody I've interviewed, this question. And some of them, I will tell you now, and answered it with, I think, insane answers. But this is what I'm going to ask. If you could face any pitcher, living or dead, of all time, to dig your heels in the box and give it a go, who do you want to face?
Oh, okay. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I've heard some crazy answers, by the way. Crazy.
I'm gonna go Bob Gibson for
That's
sure.
three.
For sure,
So
Bob.
you're one of them, because that's look.
Yeah.
3 people have said Bob Gibson, and I think that y'all are all madmen. You
Yeah,
are
I go
all
against the
madmen.
best, man. Yeah, I go against the best. Bob Gibson, that dude was different, and that was a mean
Absolutely.
dude on the mound. So, Bob Gibson was, I'd have to say him, or the other one I'd say is Satchel Paige.
Ooh, now that's the first Satchel Paige. That's a good one. That's a good
Yeah,
one. But I've heard 3 Bob Gibson. I think y'all are all insane.
yeah. No, I mean, you don't
Insane.
want to face him, but you want to face the best, man. Got to beat the best to be the best.
What as you look into the landscape of, say, the next, all right, let me ask you, I'll ask this way. Wave a magic wand and tomorrow you're commissioner of baseball. What's the first thing you change?
Man, you're asking good questions.
I try, Mike. I try.
The first thing I changed, I think, is already being changed. One of the things at Rock, we actually put on the Super Bowl halftime show, right? And NFL, has hired us to do that because of, to your point, merging sport and culture. We've done the same thing with Major League Baseball, and are currently doing the same thing with Major League Baseball, and helping them, have their pulse on what they're doing as far as merging sport and culture as well. And they already have a lot of different initiatives going on as far as what they're doing with the teams, as far as bringing in more blacks into the front office, different things like that, and creating opportunities. So, I just think continuing to bring more culture into the game, into the venues in different ways would be number one for me. And, I think, a 1A would just like continuing to figure out how to make the game more accessible. It's way too expensive. We're not ultimately getting in, and that's a grassroots answer, right? The first answer was from a higher level, wanting to, bring people in the stadium and making sure that they feel comfortable in the stadium as well, which means that it has to be a diverse experience, number one. Number two is just, going to grassroots and saying, I got to leave the game better than it was. So, the biggest thing, and I love, 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 love what the Players Alliance did on Giving Tuesday. They went right at the problem. They went right at the problem and said, hey man, look, we're gonna match it times 3. Anything that you guys donate, we're gonna match it. And we're gonna make sure to buy equipment directly for these kids, to buy, whatever they need to be able to play this sport. I think that is so very important because you just have too many parents, regardless of race, but just too many parents who are getting priced out of the sport.
What's the best advice you've ever received in regards to being a successful professional?
Yeah, man. I have a mentor in the business, man, who's you know mentors a lot of us, but he came to me and he said to me, when he started as an attorney, um, in New York City, everybody wore a navy blue suit jacket and this, I guess, yellow tie. Maybe I'm saying it wrong as far as the color of the tie, but he said everybody did that, and they said you got to walk like this, or you got to talk like this, or you got to dress like this, and he said, look, man, you know, I'm from Brooklyn. I'm gonna be Brooklyn, right? And as soon as I started to be myself,
Mm,
that's when I started to find success. And I think that's the truth, man. I think that's the biggest thing that I can say. Even with players in baseball, when I was a player in baseball, a lot of times it was playing in situations where I wasn't fully comfortable.
mhm.
I wasn't fully comfortable in being who I was, and looking back at it, you never want to conform, but we were kids at the time, right? Coming through, and like I said, the best advice I got, in being an agent was, look, be you, because ultimately that's going to allow you to be successful, and is being authentic and being yourself. So I tell anybody that, if I find a player, he's a flashy player. He likes to have some flash and some fun in the game. For me, it's about making sure that, number one, you go about your craft the right way, right? You respect the grind of what it takes, but don't ever change who you are. I tell those guys that. Don't ever change who you are, because ultimately that's what's going to allow it to be exciting and attractive for the next round of guys.
All right, Mike. Last question of the interview, and don't worry. Look, Roc Nation, don't panic. OG1, Hove, none of them panic. But when I ask 10, 15 years from now, if you are doing what you want to do, whether it's in the sport, hopefully it's in the sport, what does that look like? Does that look like, uh, what would ultimately be the final kind of boss level of what you're doing?
You know what, man? To me, I reached it. Being at Rock, being right here. I look up at 10, 15 years. I just want to make sure that the young guys that we represent, the amateurs who are counting on us to help them navigate and maneuver their careers, that in 10, 15 years they're doing well with families and successful human beings and all they do in life, and hopefully really successful in the game. I think from a career perspective, if I'm sitting there at Roc Nation and these guys have been able to find a lot of success, then I'm super happy with where I'm at and how things turned out.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll have to leave it there. This is Mixtape Talk, episode 12. Mike Sanders, Roc Nation Sports. Tell everybody, because your Instagram is as what's the best word to say? Your Instagram is pretty good. It's pretty popping. So where do everybody can find you? Keep up with what you're doing.
Yeah, no, at Mike Sanders, man, MikeSanders, at Mike Sanders on IG. Hit me up, and for all those families out there, look, your kid doesn't have to be a top draft pick. If you guys ever have any questions or anything that I can ever do to help, I'm a resource. So don't ever hesitate to hit me up on IG. I'll definitely get back with you.
Look, we'll leave it there. I'll be look. I got an 8-year-old. He's right-handed. Look, look.
You're
we'll,
good.
we'll keep following. We'll keep following, man. I really appreciate it, Mike. And I say this on the air because I say it with um as much honesty and reverence as I possibly can. We need more mics. We need more Mike Sanders and people that really understand how we can make this game more attractive and more cultural appropriate for the next generation. You do it at one of the best levels I've ever seen, at one of the best companies that's able to do it. So I really, really appreciate, because you may not know it, but step by step, you are changing the game. You're laying the foundation for the next generation, and so I really appreciate you coming on talking to us.
No, I appreciate it, Mark. Thanks for having me, man. It's been fun.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is Mixtape Talk. Until next time, we see it.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Oh,
Look,
yeah, man. I enjoyed that.
I hope so, man. I try. We try to give. My goal is to give the people that we talk to a little bit different, a little bit of insight. And like I said, it definitely helps to see people that look like us
Hmm.
talking about the game. I didn't even get to talk. Look, you guys, don't you? Do you represent Montgomery too, out of Stanford?
Yeah, yep, Braden.
Yeah, that dude's gonna be like, that dude's he's got a lot
Give me the
of hit.
truth.
Yeah, man. So I
Give me
mean,
the truth.
Johnson was what, 4 overall.
4 overall. Braden's coming out this year. We got a good crop, man. But like, to your point, like, you start looking down at like even 25, 26, and these kids are getting better and better, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a matter of time. It's just I really think it was really disappointing this year that It was just it happened to be the Astros and the Phillies because those are literally the only teams in the playoffs without black players, right?
Right.
And
Correct.
so the way that it shook out, they get these headlines that were like, "Oh, no black player in the World Series since 1950," which is true, and I get it. It's unfortunate, but it was like, man, like, I think that might be, this year, maybe next year, like that just can't happen with the crop of players we have. They're just too good. They're too good. They're too athletic. They're too talented. They're all throwing, the pictures are throwing in the mid to upper nine. It's insane what they're doing. And so,
Yeah, no, I gotta think it's gonna change though. I gotta think this group that's coming through because there's so many of them and they're so high end
right.
that percentage is finally gonna go back up.
I think I always wonder too, because there was a mindset that, like, I think now our community really is starting to understand, which sucks because I don't like it, but there is a mindset about the specialization early on.
Mhm.
And I think our community, because we had such athletic talents, and it was nothing for our kid to be football, then go to basketball, then go to baseball, and they never really played year round because they were playing other sports.
Right.
And so what happens is, with all due respect, you get, you know, not talented, but like decent left-handed white kid
Mhm.
who's all he does all year round is work on curveballs and you know what I mean. That gets
Exactly.
him out. That gets him out of high school. Maybe gets him into college. You know what I mean. But I think you're starting to see now more and more kids, and I don't necessarily love this, but you get less. Our kids are starting to specialize now too. So you're starting to see those kids play year round and they're going to the camps and they're doing all the things and it's just changing a lot. I hate it. I hate that only because it still puts our kids in a system I think that's unfair to our families.
It
But
is.
it is, it is what it is. Like
No, I've
kids
been
starting to
following you too, man. The Black Baseball Mixtape. You've been doing your thing with this. What's your vision
man,
ultimately?
so it's all hobby, bro. I'm gonna tell you the truth. It's all because I wanted to do something. Like my kid, like I said, my kid is 8 and he started playing, and I started coaching, and I'm
Yeah.
coaching at the same little league that I was playing at. You know what I mean? And
Cool.
so it was one of those things where I've always had a passion for media, so I've done other stuff in media, but I was like, bro, how can we highlight there is a void. So one of the people that I look up to the most is Bobito Garcia from Stretch and
Hmm.
Bobito's hip hop, radio show back in the day. And so I was a hip hop writer
Okay.
before, like, I started all of this again real quick. I'll just do it really quickly. All of this was still freelance, but I was freelance hip hop writing in Richmond. There are no hip hop writers in Richmond, so that made me like the dude about
Right, right, right.
10 years ago. Like when everybody would come in town, they'd be like, "Oh, you got to sit down with this hip hop blog." I wasn't
That's
even
cool.
I was a hip hop writer, but I was a fan. But it was just like nobody was doing it. And so
Right.
when I met Bob, I was like, "Bro, you have made a life. Your whole life is built around basketball, DJing, and like hip hop, like culture. Like this is all you like. How have you done this?" And he was like, "Cheats, I'll tell you the secret." He was like, "Find a void, fill void."
You know
That's
what?
all
That's
he
a fact.
told me. And
That's a fact.
so when I was kind of going through, I'd gotten really heavily into like probably last year I got really heavily into Negro League stuff and history and visited the museum and had done a bunch of that stuff, and I'm a big lids guy, so I was getting like I'd done a like this thing with American Needle where they sent me a bunch of Negro League hats, and I was just like telling the history about the
Pretty
teams.
cool. That's
And
dope. Yeah.
so when I started, I was like, man, I got to do something for the game. I got to do something. And then I just was like, all right, we're just gonna launch this blog, and we did and it's kind of morphed a little bit, but like the first couple of posts I was writing about was like, who's the greatest black fictional, who's the greatest black fictional movie character, right?
Right,
Like,
right,
is
right.
it Willie Mays Hayes? Is it Mister
Mhm.
3000 Bernie Mac? Like, who are like? So we were writing kind of funnier stuff, and then what really changed some of the stuff for me is that I realized that at 299 Division One baseball programs. So get that,
Mhm.
299 Division One baseball programs. Do you know how many black head coaches there are?
think it's like 3 or 4.
At the time I started, get this, at the time I started, which was this season, there were 2.
Yeah.
Georgetown and Presbyterian. Now there are going to be there are 2. This is outside of HBCUs. There are 2 at PWIs. Now there are 5. So the head coach over at Butler, the head coach over at Memphis, and the head coach over at Marist all got hired this offseason. So they'll start their seasons.
Right.
So I've already interviewed all 5 of those cats.
Yeah.
So that's I started as soon as I started. I got with Coach Thompson at Georgetown, and then he was like, "Mark, you got to talk to these coaches." And then I started, I still one of the things that I will ask if we can ever work it out is what the next step of what we're doing on the site. I need to start like getting players on.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to have players on to talk about their experience about being that Mason Wynn, that tomorrow, you know what I mean? Like that new.
Let's do it.
No, I'd love to have, but that was my thing, man. We started this like professionally. I'm good in that sense. I work for so in Virginia, there's 2 senators. They're both Democrats. There's a guy named Tim Kaine who was Hillary Clinton's running mate.
Yeah, I remember.
That's my boss. So I worked for him 18 years now. Yeah, that's what I do. Dave.
Cool.
So it's kind of funny when you were talking about the way I can relate when you were talking about when you start a job and then somebody pulling you to the side and saying you got to be yourself, because in that world, I mean, this is 18 years ago now, but all of us are graduating college. All of us are like trying to be these young and upcoming like political community folks. And so you're all wearing the 3-piece suits. You're all wearing the top.
Yeah.
And I met a dude kind of early on. There's like, because when we talk about this for our people, there's always some white dude that's like in jeans, not wearing shoes, and a collared shirt that's like at the top of the shit. And you're like, yo, how am I sitting here wearing like 3-piece suits and going to all these things? And my man Mike literally walks in with a backwards hat, a hoodie, and everybody's like, Mike's the man.
Exactly.
And so I figured it. I mean, it took me a while to, to do the things I needed to get where I needed to with the organization. But like now I'm that dude in the sense of I'm, a top aide to the senator. I dress like this half the time. Like, you know what I mean? And then,
exactly. And that's how I feel to that comfort.
Yeah. All the young people are like, and so it's really funny because I give all these speeches to interns all the time. I'm like, look, you're going to see the shit I do. And then I got to tell them, like, in the next sentence, you are not me. Right? Like, because, like, again, you got kids coming out of college, and it's like, I get it, but but you're not, like, I've got 18 years in now. You can't, you're not going to, you're going to get fired.
Yeah,
I'm going to be here still. So, but yeah, man, that's it, man. That's the story, bro.
Well, let's do this, man. Like I said, I wrap up winter meetings this end of the week. Let's touch base the next week. Let's get one of the guys on, man. Anything I can do, just let me know.
Absolutely, man. No, I'd love to. And anything, like I said, we're gonna keep growing the site, growing the vision, and talking to folks and highlighting, the next generation and hopefully some of the things. Like there's some things that you can't ignore. Dusty Baker wins the World Series, or Mookie Betts wears a T-shirt that says we need more black people at the stadium. Like you can't let that go without talking about it the way. But I do think the wave is going to be the kids that you're talking about, the Montgomerys, the Johnson. Like there's that. Yeah. Even though you got to tell your man to chill.
Who's that?
Look, your man. Look, win at the at the Futures game.
Oh.
So I'm watching the Futures game. I'm watching the play. The one he throws, he throws like 100 miles an hour to the first baseman. Me and my boy, one of my best friends is from the Bronx, and we're watching the game, and we're like, yo, you got to tell my man to chill.
Hey, bro. Mason on go, bro. That guy right there, bro.
That was a viral moment if I've ever seen it, but I was like, all of y'all need, he's throwing the ball to first baseman. All y'all got to chill a little bit.
He's going to be a good one, too, man. I mean, he'll be up with St. Louis. He's going to be a good one.
Is it him and Walker, right?
He's a sneaky one.
Well, it's him and Walker, right? Him and Jordan Walker, right? Over there in the Cardinals organization.
Yep. And then him and Jordan Tink.
Okay. Oh, yeah, man. There's so many of them, bro. There's so many of them. Hey, I appreciate you.
Yeah.
This will be up the way that we recorded it. Hopefully, it because it's recorded in this format, it'll be up probably tomorrow.
Cool.
And I'll just kind of tag you. We'll cut up some things as well,
Cool.
and
I
try to
really
make
do.
it. But yeah, man, seriously, let's stay in touch. I really
Yeah.
appreciate how many black agents are there? Are there other black agents at Rock Sports?
Yeah, man. We have one more black agent. We got, bro. There's everybody in the game's trying to like now hire a black person to recruit the black players, but
You got to do something. Shit.
yeah, they trying. They trying. So it's a nice handful of just like black, I guess, people on
That
the ground.
that
Nice handful of
certification
content.
though, that certification is
Certification's a whole
beast.
different bag. That's a
That's a
different bag.
beast, right? That's like a different.
It is and it isn't. Like,
Okay.
you got to study, but they're not trying to trick you on the test. And, ultimately, you just got to have a guy in the big leagues first.
That's what I say. You got to have a man on the 40 man, though, right? That's the thing. There's people that could grind for a long time and not be like, I guess, an MLBA certified.
Well, generally, what happens is as long as you get with a reputable group and they have a major leaguer, they can just put your name on the PAD.
Oh, okay. I see.
And then you can take the test. So it ain't like you got to have them, but it's a lot of agents running around not certified for sure.
All right. Last thing. Have you sat on the Lenny S. Gold couch?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Sure.
That's like light work. Here's the thing. To us peons down here, that is not light work. That is a big deal, right?
Yeah. I was like, when they had it, they brought the couch out, or a version of it out to LA, and people were just taking pictures.
No, that don't count. That count. Does that count? That don't count.
This couch is that famous?
That couch is famous, bro.
That's Lenny's office, right? That's just his office.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I'll tell you a really funny thing. Last thing is, so when Roc Nation did the first New Era deal, I don't know if you remember this. This is before your time in regards to working there, but they did the first New Era deal. I guess it was like 2011, and it was white and blacks, 5950s, before Rock got sued. Before,
you're putting me on game right now. This is new to me.
Oh, you didn't know about this? I'm gonna send you a link. So I was writing for the Huffington Post. That was the other thing that was kind of crazy because I was a local hip hop blogger, but the Huffington Post, I got in with those guys. So I was writing hip hop art. Like I wrote the first Huffington Post Rhapsody article.
Oh, really?
And so again, and
I was just dope. That's really cool.
But the funny part was that when the hats dropped, so my wife, like you talk about, always behind us is always a good woman. My wife was like, yo, she was like, yo, you've been blogging since I met you, and I've known her for a while. She was like, you ain't get nothing for free. She was like, I look at the makeup people, they get like Beyonce sending crates of Ivy Park to people's houses. She was like, what are you doing? You're just sitting here like doing nothing. So I was like, you know what? You're right. So when NNA started doing baseball hip hop collabs, I started like hitting out to the agencies and saying, oh, I'll write these articles and so forth. So when the first Roc Nation joint dropped, it was white and black 5950s, and there was a lady over at New Era, black lady, it was phenomenal. Her name was Piper McCoy. She was like, so I got in with New Era, and they were like, oh yeah, we'll send you hats, write the article, and so forth. Get her on the phone with Piper McCoy because she's the person that everybody was kind of like upscale Vandal. All these guys were bigging up, like she's the plug at New Era. So I get on the phone. with Piper McCoy. She doesn't work there anymore, but I get on the phone with her, and she's like, yo, I know nothing about these hats, bro. She's like,
really?
She was like, I'm the plug at New Era and I work with culture, but I don't know nothing about these hats. So she goes, you know who does? Emery. I'm going to call Emery right now. She's like, I'm going to put you on three-way. Emery, he knows everything about the hats. So I'm like, Emery, who the fuck?
He knows everything.
Oh, shit. She's like, she put me on the phone with Vegas Jones, three-way.
That's my brother. He's got 2 offices down from mine.
That's insane. So the first Roc Nation, Huffington Post, Roc Nation, like, because when they got the hat article, because Huffington Post it wasn't like the source, it was like a real news. They went crazy, but I wrote that article. They put me on the phone. Emery did the whole interview.
I gotta see it.
That's crazy. That was back in the day, man. I will. It was like 2011, but
That's
it was.
Really cool. No, but Emery's the man, bro. He
was a small world.
He knows his stuff.
Yeah, man. I was geeking out. I was geeking out, man, and I talked to him, and he knew everything. He knew everything about that. So they wound up. It was supposed to be a 3-hat run. They did the black and whites, got him on the street. they did the 4th of July's, and so they had the paper planes on where the New Era patch was, Batterman, and then the third ones were supposed to be these crazy 3-way. They never got them off because
Really?
the parent company was suing over the Roc Nation label at the time. So as
Gotcha.
soon as the lawsuit dropped, New Era and those guys I think they've come back and New Era's worked with Roc Nation.
No, they're working together now.
Yeah, but it was at the very first ones, the very first.
That's wild. Yeah, that's game to me. I didn't know that. Man. But no, Mark, this has been good. I appreciate you, man.
Nah, man, appreciate you.
I'm a resource, man. Anything you ever need, bro, I'm here. You need access to players or whatever.
Nah, man, we're gonna keep it going, man. When do you ever come back to the East?
Yeah, I come back East all the time. You up in Virginia?
I'm in Virginia. Yeah. So I'm in Richmond, and then but we're gonna go.
You got a young man up here I'm gonna be coming to see quite a bit this year. Client named Aiden Harris.
Yeah, over at UVA. Then he signed with UVA over in Manchester. Was it Manchester?
Manchester. Yep.
Yeah. So that's
how far is that
from
you? Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Manchester's literally in Richmond. It's in the.
We got break bread when I get in town in January.
Absolutely, no doubt. And then he's got a senior year right at Manchester. Then he's already signed junior. He's already signed with UVA, right?
Mm-hmm. Signed with UVA. He's a good one.
Huge kid, yeah, big kid. Now, man, we got some. Definitely. So, because I'm right there, and now I'm getting more and more plugged in with I'm a VCU alum. We got a top 25 program out here now. The UVA's got a top one. Tech's far away, but they're still really good. So
yeah, you got a good ball. Well, hey, thanks again, Mark. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right, man.